The Lenovo HX Series is all about making it easier to set up and run your infrastructure. But what about planning for the future? In this demo, we're going to look at how Prism Pro helps administrators easily understand what's happening with their current workload and also do just-in-time planning for future changes. So we're starting here at the Prism Central console, and notice that we have cluster runway information for the 4 clusters that we're currently running in our demo environment. I want to focus in on the HX 3310 cluster and take a closer look at what's happening here. So a couple of things to notice. Number one is we can see that our current runway is 251 days, right? We've got plenty of headroom here for the workload as it currently stands. We see the graph here on the right-hand side looking at the different elements, and I can select first here the storage runway, I can look at CPU runway, and I can look at memory runway, the 3 basic elements of performance that I'm going to be concerned about. And in each of these cases, as you can see, we're not growing the current workload very much, and so we've got plenty of capacity for the future. But what's going to happen if we begin to add new workloads? Well, we're going to look at that in a moment. But first, let's take a closer look at the current workloads that we're focused on. I'm going to select View Recommendations to see if there's anything we can do to clean up what's currently happening. So the first recommendation that comes up, it says, hey, we've got some dead virtual machines in our clusters. Now, these are virtual machines that haven't been powered on for over 30 days. Now, does that just happen in a demo environment? Does that happen in the real world? Well, certainly that happens in the real world as well, where projects may time out over months or even over years, and the administrator never really finds out about it, and so virtual machines just sit out there unused. So these are all things that can easily be cleaned up simply by deleting the virtual machines, assuming we go back and check with the project owners first, of course. And then there's also a second recommendation here about over-provisioned VMs. These are VMs that are using less than 20% of their memory or CPU within the last week. Again, is that something that happens in reality? Sure it does, right? We've got certainly always opportunities where projects get commissioned. We make estimates about how much capacity they're going to need, how much resources they're going to need, and then we may be off track. It may turn out they don't need as much memory or virtual CPU resources as we thought. And so this is great because it allows us to identify those things and easily be able to go back and remedy those situations and give us a little more capacity with even our current workload. But let's talk about the future, right? Let's think about how we're going to be adding additional workloads and do some capacity planning for things that are happening later this year. Okay, so I'm going to click on the Get Started here, and we're going to go into a scenario that's going to help us look at the future workloads here. So to start off with, we can see on the right-hand side, we've got the overall runway. We've got our target at 6 months. Everything is looking green here. But I'm also going to change the view so we can look at the individual aspects, again, the storage, the CPU, and the memory as we make these changes. So let's add some workloads in here. Now, when I do this, we have a pull down of workloads, basically profiles of these different types of workloads that have been developed to help with the planning horizon. So let's look, for example, at VDI. So let's say I've got some new workload coming online. I've got some developers that need some VDI sessions, and so we're going to have 20 new developers coming online, and that's going to be on July 1st. So we're going to add that workload into our list. And so immediately you notice on the right-hand side, right, it indicates on July 1st an additional requirement for storage, and if we looked at it, you'd see CPU and memory as well. But let's go ahead and finish adding the workloads, and then we can look at the impact at the same time. So once those developers are done with their work, they're going to result in having some additional virtual machines online. Now, in this case, I'm going to use much more custom profile because I'm going to look at additional or existing workloads that I already have. So the work that they're doing is going to result in an additional set of virtual machines coming online. Another 20 virtual machines are going to be just like the current HX Web 1 that we have out there. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to say once they're done with their work, it's going to be out September 1st, and we're going to have 20 of those virtual machines that are going to be coming online at that time. Now again, you can see the impact immediately over here on the storage side. Now with this additional, right, we're now crossing over the line of what we're going to be able to handle with our current capacity. And so in a moment, we're going to start looking at what we need to recommend to address that. but I want to add one additional workload because I know in an unrelated project, we're going to have, again, some more VDI users coming online. These are going to be power users, and we're going to be adding 50 users. So this is a pretty big project. We've got 50 users coming online, although that's not going to be until a little bit later on this year. So part of the idea here is, again, think about it in terms of, budgeting, planning for the future, right? I can really kind of lay out my whole year and begin to really anticipate what's going to happen, right? So based on those three workloads now, we can look over on the right-hand side and we can see, yeah, we're definitely going to need some additional resources. Let's look at the attributes here. Certainly storage capacity is going to be an issue. CPU capacity is going to also be an issue. Let's look at memory. Yeah, memory is going to be, looks like it's going to be a real issue. So we're going to certainly need to add resources for all of that into our existing cluster. So if we look down the bottom here, we can see our existing hardware that we're doing this modeling off of. And now we want to make a recommendation. So we're not sure exactly, what systems we should order perhaps, or at least this is a starting point to see what would be recommended here. And as we hit the recommendation button, we can see that it comes back and says, all right, well, we should do this in two steps. We're going to need to add one more 3310. It's going to add additional CPU, memory, and storage. We're going to be okay with the first edition here in July, but we're going to need that new system before we get out to that workload coming online in the September timeframe. And then we're going to need another system in preparation for that workload later on in the year as well. And again, so you can see kind of the step function that we get by adding the resources, both from storage, from CPU, and from memory. And so with that recommendation, it looks like we're going to be good. And it gives us the detail that we need to really put that plan in place and make sure we've got those systems available for capacity when we need it. So that's all there is to it, really. Prism Pro uses this advanced machine learning behavior to help administrators properly plan for future growth for both existing and projected workloads, making it easier and allowing them to spend more time driving value for their organizations.